Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. This is live stream 1204. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out it's super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then sometimes I'll take a first look at a role-playing game, maybe unbox a board game. Other times we come up with a topic that we're going to chat about, which is what we're doing tonight. Other times just hang out, kind of chatting with the people in chat. So tonight, we're going to talk about what could a Kolchak the Night Stalker tabletop role-playing game look like. That's right, we're going to discuss this. And I do want folks out there hanging out in chat to take part in the discussion. When we get to the discussion, don't start hitting me with stuff now, because it'll be long forgotten. But when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, because this is a live show, there is chat available. It's not on screen. One of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 60 minutes before you can take part in chat. Yes, it's supposed to be 10, but I guess every time I try to change it, it just doesn't change. So I guess it's an hour, which is another way to keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. So there is that. First out the gate tonight is Semper Buffo, Keithulu, Sean O'Donnell, Coco B, Captain Infinity Time Police, DB, JD Soul 3002, LJ Costanzo is also in the house. Very nice. Very nice. Chat's already off, rocking and rolling. And I will take a guess. The lovely and talented Miss Sarah D just might be lurking in the shadows as our chat moderator tonight. She of the glittery banhammer. So DB said they were hoping to see me in a seersucker suit and a straw hat. Well, you are actually seeing something that you normally don't. My hair. So yes, I am actually just wearing one of these tonight. Man, it is hot in the Chicago area. And I know it is hotter than hell everywhere right now, especially in the US. So yeah, man, thankfully it's not too bad down here in the Duct Tape Studios. Although, strangely enough, the humidity is always higher down here. I don't know why. It's like a cool swamp. Yeah, Sarah D is with us. DB says, yeah, it was a missed opportunity. So JD Soul says, the Bears or the Hares. Keithula says they have a seersucker suit complete with the blue shirt, black tie, and the pork pie hat. I guess Keithula is going to be throwing some ideas out there when we start talking about the Kolchak role-playing game. Hey, you know what? I just want to also point out, please don't think that I am looking to publish a Kolchak role-playing game. That ain't happening because, for one, the licensing on it would be insane. Little birdies kind of told me about that. We'll talk about this stuff in just a bit. So let's jump on into the news because the second edition of the post-apocalyptic skirmish miniatures rules, This Is Not a Test, is now available for pre-order. And I've got the scoop from Black Site Studios. The Great Armed Conflict, known as the End War, ravaged the world for years, but came to its devastating conclusion in just seconds. In the aftermath of the nuclear attacks, remembered as the Great Fall, the United States was left a scarred wasteland. Millions died. Polite society collapsed. I thought polite society's already collapsed. We don't need nuclear war to do that. And scientific knowledge was lost in a forest of mushroom clouds. But hey, it's not all bad. You and your fellow survivors live in the tri-state wasteland, an unforgiving land of mutants, lost technology, and as much opportunity as danger. In this new world, anyone can make their own destiny, but it's not easy, and you better have grit, cunning, and a willingness to get a little dirty. This is the world of This Is Not a Test, a 28mm skirmish war game set in a post-apocalyptic United States where warbands fight for survival, power, and greed in the wastes. This rulebook features fast and involved gameplay. Play in as little as an hour. The game rewards tactical thinking, and the activation system ensures play passes back and forth in a dynamic fashion that keeps all players involved to the very end. Many factions to choose from: murderous raiders, unusual mutants, profit-driven caravanners, primitive tribals, technology-seeking preservers, and wasteland rangers known as peacekeepers. Mutation skills and abilities: tons of different mutation skills and, you guessed it, abilities to customize your models and make a true, unique warband. Harness the power of the past. No wasteland is complete without powerful ancient weapons littered about. Everything from laser carbines to plasma casters. And don't forget about the ever-popular power armor. That sounds like another post-apocalyptic game. Name's on the tip of my tongue. There's multiple scenarios as well as a full campaign. Play through the scenarios in the book or as an entire series of linked games. There's a fully detailed campaign system which is included to keep track of injuries, income, experience, new skills, and overall power. Watch your warband go from a bunch of soft bellies to full wasteland legends. This is a truly dangerous wasteland because there's full rules for wasteland hazards such as emberquakes, rip winds, and other natural occurrences that are as dangerous to your warband as your opponent. Additionally, a bestiary is included with over 30 entries for various wasteland creatures. Watch out for all types of fauna, from simple rad zombies to the terrifying land snapper. All have been categorized and cataloged for your hunting pleasure. The hardcover rulebook carries an MSRP of $59.99. Sadly enough, I could not find a page count. But if you want to grab just the PDF, you can do so for $29.99. I am not overly familiar with This Is Not a Test outside of having heard from people in the past telling me that the first edition was pretty good. In fact, I seem to recall some folks were saying it was better than Fallout Wasteland Warfare. So there is that. There is that. Sweet. Moving right along, there is a new edition of the Crooked Moon Folk Horror Adventure for 5e. It has arrived from Avantris Entertainment, and here's what I know. Prepare for the ultimate folk horror role-playing game experience with The Crooked Moon. The Crooked Moon is a massive 632-page tome that brings folk horror to 5e. Inside, you'll find player options and GM tools to terrify your friends in a haunting game they'll never forget, drawing inspiration from grim folklore, legendary horror films, and classic Halloween aesthetics. Immerse yourself in the creepy, thrilling, and mysterious campaign setting of Druskenwald, a demiplane of endless night where the living and dead coexist. There are brand new mechanics and features such as the fate weaving system, easy to use tools to intertwine player character backstories and motivations into the main narrative. All new character creation options include 15 folk horror subclasses and 13 Halloween inspired reborn species, such as the Sinner Rogue, a roguish archetype empowered with inflicting hexes and curses with the art of jinx crafting, or the Harvestborn, a species of scarecrow-like constructs of wood, metal, or straw. There's a robust bestiary featuring 85 monsters and beasts inspired by Halloween and folklore. And you've got 11 legendary boss monsters, such as the Wicker Man, the Ghost Train, or the Horned King, to create vivid, iconic, and challenging combat encounters. 26 epic upgraded magic items to use as loot in your games, and a terrifying 350-page original adventure for levels 1 to 13, where a party of wayward souls must journey through the shroud aboard the Ghostlight Express to uncover the dark machinations of the Crooked Man, and much, much more. With the Crooked Moon, you can brave the dark wood, beware the witching hour, and weave your own dreadful folk tale. Right now, you can pre-order the 632-page hardcover for $65, which I have, yes, 632 pages. That's a pretty fair price, I got to say. Now, if you want to just score the PDF, you can do so right now. It is out. It is available over at DriveThruRPG for $41.99. I got to say, this looks pretty impressive. Now, this is a second edition. So the first edition must have been good enough to lead to this massive 600+ page second edition. Got to say, artwork looks good. Presentation looks really good. If you don't mind the 5e mechanics, remember, you're not playing Dungeons and Dragons. You're using 5e mechanics. That's big difference. Could be worth checking out. I would be interested in taking a peek at it. I got to be honest. All right, let's see. We got a few more people who popped on into chat. We have got W. Forge, Robert Santon, and Kathy Evans are all joining us. Welcome aboard. On to our next news piece. Arriving on July 2nd is the compiled and revised Gatewalker's Adventure Path for Pathfinder. I've got the latest from Paizo Inc. What lies beyond the gate? On the night of the missing moment, thousands step through portals across Galarian, seemingly against their will. When they return, these so-called Gatewalkers possess strange paranormal powers, but no memory of where they had gone. Can the heroes unravel the mystery of the missing moment before the source of their newfound power consumes them? This 288-page hardcover compilation includes a complete Pathfinder campaign for characters levels 1 through 10. This updated and remastered edition of the campaign has been adjusted to work perfectly with the latest edition of the Pathfinder role-playing game, and includes updates and improvements based on player feedback. It also presents a meaty rules appendix that offers feats, monsters, and magic items designed to support this world-spanning, mind-bending campaign. The 288-page hardcover is going to carry an MSRP of $69.99. Also on July 2nd, you'll be able to grab the PDF for $19.99. Kind of interesting that they're not charging the usual PDF price for the adventure like they would a 94-page adventure path chapter. Not bad. So you're actually getting a pretty good deal on that. If you are curious about the Gatewalkers campaign, we did review all 3 chapters over on thegaminggang.com. So you can check that out if you would like. I'm not sure what kind of tweaks they've made to it. I will be honest, though. If Paizo were going to compile and, update an adventure campaign, I would have liked to have seen them do something like Extinction Curse. It's, I don't know, just because it's got a far more unique kind of setup. Everybody's part of a a circus. Yeah, everybody's carnies. They're all carnies. So, anywho, but yeah, kind of cool. I gotta say, tomorrow we will probably be having our Paizo preview for July. It's supposed to arrive tomorrow. In fact, this is one of the items that will be arriving tomorrow that we will take a peek at. If for some reason the package does not arrive tomorrow, I do have a backup plan for tomorrow's show. So keep that in mind. W. Forge asks, is it me or is anyone else getting tired of these massive page count hardcovers? I mean, if I have to kill someone at the table by bashing them, okay. But to have to reference, oh boy. Yeah, I could see that. I could certainly see that. I think one of the things that I worry about with something that's clocking in at usually about over 400 pages is how well is that book going to hold up to repeated use? Because a lot of times, and we saw this with the Pathfinder core book, originally for 2nd edition, it was so massive that the first print run, there were people who were having problems with the book falling apart. So yes, I can see where W. Forge is coming from. So you kind of have to balance things out, I guess. I guess as a publisher, you have to juggle. Should you break something up into multiple books with smaller page counts, but then you're looking at a higher MSRP because it is more expensive to publish, say, 3 220-page books than it is one 630-odd page book. I don't know. I do not know. I am not a publisher, so I can't tell you. Can't give you the answer there. Anyway, so if you are hanging out tomorrow night and the package does arrive, we will take a look at Gatewalkers as well as, I believe it's 5 other items which are showing up from Paizo Inc. All right, so let's talk about a phenomenal, and I'm serious, a phenomenal bundle, which is available right now over on Fanatical. It features Goodman Games Dungeon Crawl Classics, and I've got the deets on the deal. Get started for free with 4 PDFs, including the quick start and an adventure booklet, or take the next step at $6.99 to get your hands on the core rulebook and, I gotta say, strangely enough, 6 Dungeon Crawl Classics Dying Earth adventures. I would have thought they would have gone with just Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures. Or if you want, you can go all in for $14.99 and grab all 30 PDFs which are on offer, which includes a ton of newer Dungeon Crawl Classics releases. So you're going to get, as an example, the Dying Earth box set, Crypt of the Devil Lich, fairly new, Dark Tower for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Yes, you heard me right. Dark Tower for DCC is part of this deal. So is Grimtooth's Traps, or however it was. Hang on, I think it's the next image coming up. There you go. Grimtooth's Old School Traps, which is very new. So I got to say, if you have gone and purchased a bundle in the past that's got Dungeon Crawl Classics in it with the core book and adventures, so on and so forth, you might want to support this one, because for a penny less than $15, you're getting probably around $700 worth of PDFs, somewhere in that ballpark, and a lot of stuff that I have not seen in previous bundles, like, say, a Humble Bundle. Check it out. You got plenty of time, though, because this is going to run through, I want to say, I believe it's the either end of July, or not end of July, end of August or mid-August, probably closer to the end of August. So you had almost 2 months to make your decision on this, but I'm telling you, this is probably one of the sweetest bundles I have ever seen. $15. Come on. Wow. All right. So let's talk about our last news piece, because available in print and PDF from Blackoath Entertainment is Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse. I got the lowdown. Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse is a dark fantasy / science fiction tabletop role-playing game set in a post-apocalyptic world where humanity's technological golden age has ended in catastrophe. In the aftermath, AI systems evolved into machine gods, and human society has rebuilt itself into a feudal structure, with people interpreting advanced technology through a mystical lens. The game focuses on the fragmented region known as the Noxian Expanse, a vast wasteland dotted with ancient ruins and dominated by city estates ruled by different machine gods and their noble houses. Players take the role of reclaimers, a specialized class of adventurers and scavengers who explore the ruins of the previous age and interact with forgotten technology. Reclaimers are valued for their ability to interface with old tech, making them useful problem solvers, but also potential heretics. The game features quick character creation. Roll your attributes, pick a feat and a couple of proficiencies, spend your starting funds on gear, and you're ready to go. Too lazy to think of a proper background and motivation? Roll on the many tables this book includes and learn who your character is. Familiar yet innovative mechanics, because the core mechanic involves rolling a d20, adding modifiers, and comparing the total to a target number, making it familiar to anyone who has ever cast a die with friends. What makes the game different from other OSR rule sets is the inclusion of both static and dynamic target numbers, allowing the game to self-balance and enemies to remain a threat regardless of character level by simply referencing a single table. You've got detailed solo and GM-less rules. Whether you're going to play this alone or run it for your friends, the expansive random tables and solo rules included will ensure that you don't have to spend a minute wondering what happens next. Random landmark generation, ruin generation, settlements, NPCs, enemy creature behavior, everything you need is here. Furthermore, the game is fully player-facing, meaning the only ones making checks are the player characters, even during combat. As the old adage goes, any sufficiently, or I should say, no, that's right. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Yes, thank you, Arthur C. Clarke. The age of technology might be long gone, but powerful relics of that time remain, many still fully operable. All spells are cast using these relics, and magic items that grant their wielders powerful abilities are always sought after by all factions and powerful individuals. The game includes rules for exploring the Noxian Expanse, with procedures for navigating, encountering events, and interacting with the environment and the Noxian Expanse's inhabitants. Find an interesting old archaeology you want to explore? Use the random ruin generation rules to fully create everything you need on the fly. This is a very simple and straightforward game built with the intent to be easily hackable and expandable. Future official releases will be coming on a regular basis with more places to explore, modular rules to deepen the game's mechanics, and much more. Right now, you can get the 109-page hardcover over at Drive-Thru RPG for $35, which includes the PDF. Or if you want to just grab the PDF alone, you can do so for $15. So there you go, another new game from Blackoath Entertainment. How about that? And we just took a peek at Ruthless Heaven's Boundless Fate on last Thursday's show. So there's quite a bit out there from Blackoath Entertainment. Very, very nice. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I mentioned Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang does. The Dispatch is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit Drive-Thru RPG or Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of the One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. So if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource, hell, just like what we do, you can support the Gaming Gang in multiple ways. One is by way of a one-time donation through PayPal. And big thank you to Spencer Lee and Agile Monk for extremely generous one-time donations that they recently made by way of PayPal. Blew my mind. Really did. I was like, holy cow. So a big thank you to both of them. If you want to make a one-time donation, hell, maybe if you want to buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda, lovely. You can always do that. The link is found down in the show notes. Also want to share big shout outs to our Patreon members, because yes, we do have a Patreon. So at the $5 level, big thank you to Gustavo Cavallo, Jason Lawman, Kival, Kevin R. Smith, Marius Smith, Max Apocalypse, Sean O'Donnell, and Talzek. Our $10 members are Dan Webb, The Game Cat, Pete Strakolich, RPG Munch, Tessie Trekkie, and Tier 2 DM. And of course, last but certainly not least, our $25 level members, Agile Monk and the Madman, who I guess is still on vacation. We haven't seen him yet. He hasn't popped in tonight. So hopefully we see the Madman soon. And of course, don't forget, you can hang with the gang over on Discord. We have a Discord server. There's an invite link down in the show notes. There are some Patreon members only channels, but very few. So it's pretty much wide open. Like I said, there's only a few things. And honestly, if you're not a Patreon member, you won't miss it. Gotta be honest. Also want to mention, we are in the last week of the spring 2025 used game sale over at thegaminggang.com. Of course, this is the main way that the outlet actually funds our convention coverage. So there are plenty of great board games and role-playing games that are still up for grabs. Speaking of grabs, I probably should have mentioned this a little bit more, but I didn't. But for $25, I have small board game grab bags going on where you get a minimum of $100 worth of small footprint board games. I have 10 of them available. And a good number of the games are actually out of print. So there is that. In fact, I'll try to make sure that if anybody's, interested, because I haven't sold any of them yet, I'll be more than honest about that. I will make sure that each one gets at least a single out-of-print game. And when I say small footprint, I don't mean they're just little teeny-weeny boxes. I mean, some of the smaller stuff. Anyway, just wanted to let you know. So that is running through June 30th, and then that'll be it. That'll be it for the sale. So there you go. There you got it. Sean O'Donnell says, Fanatical is really killing it. Yeah, they've had some really nice bundles out there, and they usually run these specials for 2 months. So you got plenty of time to take advantage of it. Sean also said they're looking forward to Shining Kingdoms. Captain Finity says Dungeon Crawl Classics is at the top of their unread tabletop role-playing game book pile. You'll enjoy it. Don't be scared off from the page count, or I should say, don't be scared off by the page count, because a lot of those pages are devoted to tables. A lot of those pages are devoted to spell effects and things like that. So, like, it's not unusual to see a spell have 3 pages devoted to it, sometimes more than that. So W. Forge says, I was channeling Mel Allen. This week in baseball, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Santon says, love the hat. The half of a hat. Yeah, I'm cosplaying as a Bears coach in the OVAs. Little Britain's with us in chat. So is Lord Koss 2000. So welcome aboard. So tonight we're going to discuss what would a Kolchak the Night Stalker role-playing game possibly look like. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next attraction. There are candy bars galore in a lobby candy store, just in case you want a taste of something sweet.
Our popcorn is nutritious. You will find it delicious.
Most anything that you would care to eat. Cooling drinks that are so grand, simply name your favorite brand. Or some ice cream so good and helpful too. If you feel you need nutrition, now's the time, it's intermission. Step right up, we have the very best for you.
Harvey, want anything special for your birthday?
Just a decent cup of coffee.
You're kidding.
I'm serious. Honey, your coffee's undrinkable.
It's pretty harsh.
Well, so's your coffee. You know, the girls down at the office make better coffee on their hot plates. Well, see you later.
And he didn't even kiss me goodbye. You know, if I could just make a decent cup of coffee, I could relax.
So, relax. Why don't you try Instant Folgers? Tastes good as fresh perked.
Good as fresh perked. I'll surprise Harvey for his birthday tonight.
Hey, great coffee.
It's Instant Folgers. Doesn't it taste good as fresh perked?
Better.
Better than those girls make at the office?
Honey, their coffee can't hold a candle to yours.
Instant Folgers taste good as fresh perked. Try it.
Hello, commercial watchers. We're here at the LaChoy Chow Mein Kitchens to show you a sensational visual demonstration.
A sensational visual demonstration.
This is the lovable LaChoy Dragon.
You tell him, baby. I quick cook LaChoy chow mein in dragon fire, like so. Is that a great visual demonstration?
A great demo, folks. Quick cooking makes LaChoy Chow Mein crisp, not mushy. Crunchy, not limp. As good as the takeout kind.
You better believe it.
Quick cooking seals in the flavor of our plump mushrooms, crunchy celery, snappy onions, sweet red peppers, and good lean meat.
And don't forget the bean sprouts and water chestnuts.
Get the great chow mein. As crisp and good as the takeout kind. LaChoy.
Because it's quick cooked in dragon fire.
Get some for a 6-minute Sunday supper. And don't forget the noodles.
How'd I do?
You're fired.
Terror stalks the streets as a scientist's human transplantation experiment runs amok. The Astro Zombies.
It is done, Francho.
John Carradine and Wendell Corey star in one of the most frightening horror films ever made. Watch in terror, scream in fright, thrill to breathless excitement as these skull-faced astro-zombies strike blindly at living flesh, tearing, ripping, and killing with blood-drenched fury. Unbearable suspense and sadistic terror grip the senses as these human transplants threaten the safety of a city.
This is a very delicate situation. We are concerned with the mutilation murders that have occurred over the past 6 months.
The beautiful, voluptuous, deadly, vicious Satana, a woman who would stop at nothing to gain control over the Astro Zombies, whose creed was kill, kill, kill.
Kill him.
Between them, they created a blood-soaked reign of terror to stagger the imagination. The Astro Zombies, a strange, weird, unbelievable breed of living dead in human form. Their deranged transplanted brains could only lead them to murder, action to thrill you, suspense to make your blood curdle. You watch in frightened fascination. Beating hearts and throbbing, living brains are transplanted by a scientist whose motives are entirely dedicated to evil.
Come on. Who are you?
Watch as the vicious Satana tortures her victim. Watch as the Astro Zombies attack with maniacal fury. Watch as a deadly weapon cuts a head in two. Watch as the blood flows and splatters the screen. Watch the Astro Zombies. You will die 1,000 deaths as you watch the Astro Zombies, starring Wendell Corey and John Carradine.
Oh, the family fun you'll have with the Astro Zombies. Yikes. And was that guy draining blood, or was he boosting gas out of a car's gas tank? It's like kind of weird, kind of wild, kind of kooky. All right. So tonight's topic, we are going to talk about what a tabletop role-playing game based on Kolchak the Night Stalker might possibly look like.
May I introduce myself? My name is Kolchak of the Daily Chronicle.
Kolchak reports the bizarre, the supernatural, the unexplainable.
You again in another crazy story.
This nut thinks he is a vampire.
You know what I call that? Irresponsible yellow journalism.
He has killed 4, maybe 5 women. I saw that so-called super killer wipe up the streets with your so-called police force.
They don't want any help from amateur bloodhounds like you.
I've been a reporter for 22 years.
I've been a police officer for 30.
Well, then why don't you retire?
Each man in the field is issued one of these, and one of these.
Are you suggesting that we pound one of these into Skorzeny's chest?
No, into his heart.
Darren McGavin, the Night Stalker.
Yes, that was a promo for the first film, which was The Night Stalker. And I'm kind of curious how many folks out there hanging out in chat are familiar with Kolchak the Night Stalker. If you're not, it's fine. It's no big deal. But kind of give you a little background if you're not overly familiar with Karl Kolchak, or actually his real name is Carol Kolchak. I wonder how many of you out there knew that. Yes, Karl is actually just the anglicized version of his name, because his name is actually Carol with, I think it's with a K. Anyway, so there was this unsold novel, which was the Kolchak, I think it was the Kolchak Papers is what it was called, by Jeff Rice. And in it, Kolchak is a reporter for a Las Vegas newspaper. He's tracking down a serial killer who ends up turning out to be a vampire, which you've already seen in the promo. They gave that away, right? So ABC actually approached Rice to option the Kolchak Papers and then had Richard Matheson adapted into a television movie. Yes, the famed Richard Matheson. So, like I said, the novel wasn't published, but after that TV movie aired, it was published and it actually became a bestseller. In fact, when The Night Stalker first aired, January 11th, 1972, it had the highest ratings of any television movie to that point in time. It's like, wait, what? It had a 33.2 rating, a 54 share, which means about 75 million people watched that movie on ABC. Could you imagine what a network show or even a cable show, what that channel would do to get 75 million people watching something that's not, the Super Bowl? So LJ Constanzo says, I'd love to see that's done with Free League system, the rule set used for Blade Runner. They're currently reading the starter set for Blade Runner. Keith Lewis says the X-Files paid tribute to Kolchak in one episode. I think it's more than one. I think Darren McGavin plays that character in two episodes. I might not be right because I didn't watch all of the X-Files. Yeah, I know. What can I tell you? So we had the first movie in 1972. Huge success, obviously enough, right? More people watch that than any other television movie to that point. So, of course, they asked Richard Matheson to write a second movie, which was The Night Strangler, which aired in 1973. Also did very well. It didn't beat out The Night Stalker. But by that point in time, ABC was starting to think about maybe having a series. But Matheson and William F. Nolan of Logan's Run fame actually completed a script for a third film. It was going to be titled The Night Killers, and it was going to be about android replicas taking over. And then ABC said, you know what? We'd rather have a weekly series. So beginning September 13th, 1974, and running through March 28th, 1975, The Night Stalker starred Darren McGavin as Carl Kolchak. Now, 20 episodes were shot and aired. 26 scripts, I believe, were written. 3 of the scripts are lost. So nobody knows, like maybe outside of a synopsis, what they were. Another interesting little tidbit. So if you're a fan of The Sopranos, David Chase actually touched up some of the scripts. Now, I've heard he touched up 8 of the scripts, and then I've also heard that he touched up all of the scripts, but didn't get credit for all of these scripts. And most of the punchy dialogue and the humor in the episodes can be attributed to him. So there you go. So LJ Costanzo says, I jumped into the TV series. McGavin played a character that Chris Carter wanted to call Kolchak. Yes, and McGavin said no. He said he wouldn't do it. Now, I think there's also another episode of X-Files where it's not Darren McGavin. It's not supposed to be Kolchak. But they're dressed in the seersucker suit, straw hat, blue shirt, black tie. So J-Man is with us. Might be a first-time visit with us in chat. Says they've run a Kolchak game using Delta Green rules, using breaking point rules for conflict with officials. There you go. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. So the premise, if you've not seen Kolchak, this is where kind of the term Monster of the Week maybe doesn't originate, but it certainly it certainly fits the bill, which is actually one of the reasons why Darren McGavin didn't want to continue doing the show. So there were three main reasons why Night Stalker was canceled. The main one was because of the ratings. And it aired on Friday nights. It was aimed at, younger people. And that was like a graveyard. Friday nights, even back in the day when we had 3 networks, and you might be lucky if you lived in an urban area where you got some UHF channels, maybe brought you up to 8 to 10 channels of entertainment. Even then, Friday nights were just, that was death for any TV show. So you got that. And then basically the budget kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller per episode. And that was a problem. It was kind of funny because I guess even Darren McGavin was an executive producer on the show, even though he wasn't compensated or credited for being an executive producer. And I guess he was doing a lot of the work that a producer would do. And it was just he didn't like how it was just turning into a Monster of the Week. Nothing, there was no continuity. And then also because it just had a grueling schedule for shooting, and he was putting in all this extra work without the credit and without the money. So DB says it makes the 70s Spider-Man look polished. Oh, I would not go that far. The Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man is really bad. Really bad. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some really bad episodes out of those 20. DB says they put McGavin's wife in it as a hottie cop. Yes. So LJ points out that McGavin also played Mike Hammer in a series. I think that show only lasted a season, just like Kolchak did. All right. So there's a little bit of background about Kolchak. If you've not seen Kolchak, but you're familiar with Columbo, then you have a reference point, because the way the mysteries are plotted out, kind of similar. Although, like in Columbo episodes, you'd find out who the killer is, like right up front. Maybe not so much. DB says the lizard episode is a riot. All right, so let's think of some tropes, or I guess we could say some tenets of a role-playing game, which would be based on Kolchak, the Night Stalker. And there is no way anybody is going to ever come out with a Kolchak, the Night Stalker role-playing game, because of how expensive it would be just to get that license. And weirdly enough, the way the rights are spread out is kind of unusual. Now, Dan Curtis Productions has rights. Jeff Rice, who I think is still around, has rights. ABC has rights to the 2 films. And as I mentioned already, the 20 episodes are available to stream on Peacock because it was a Universal show. So Universal has the rights to those episodes. So it'd be pretty tough to track down who you need to talk to as far as getting game book rights, because novel rights and game rights are completely different. Keith Lewis says Universal would probably ask 2 arms and 2 legs for the rights. You know, funny enough, I have heard through the grapevine that it would actually be Dan Curtis. If you had to go licensed through Dan Curtis, who was passed on, but Dan Curtis Productions, I think they would look for an arm and a leg. All right, so W. Forge brings up something that I'm going to talk about in just a bit. But let's talk about, oh, there we go. LJ Costanzo with a super chat. Thank you very much. Okay. So we're putting together a role-playing game, or we're going to, take an existing role-playing game and we're going to kind of tweak it to give it the Carl Kolchak feel. So the first thing we got to do is we have to make sure that we've got a system where it runs nicely just one-on-one. I would think at most, maybe you would have 3-player characters at most, because in episodes of the Night Stalker, Kolchak always works alone. Now he might bring somebody else in to help him, which is a lot of episodes of Death Sentence. It's like, don't help him out. Don't help him out. In fact, it's kind of funny because sometimes like the people who are helping him out get killed, and it's like, whatever. It's like, what? There's an episode where there's this Native American entity which is trying to destroy this. It's tearing apart this hospital that's just been built. And this nurse starts helping Kolchak. And it's really weird because there's a character actor who would show up in tons of stuff, plays this Native American shaman, but he's a young guy. He's a younger guy, and he's like ladies' man. And they really play up his character. It's almost like, are they trying to spin this guy off into his own show or something? It's like, what the hell? So Kolchak actually brings the nurse with off duty, so she's all sexed up, to help grill this guy about information about this Native American creature, this invisible entity. And then she gets killed. And they show her laying there dead, and it's never mentioned again. It's like, it's not like, oh, damn. Oh, my gosh. Barbara's gone. Oh, we got to stop this thing. It killed Barbara. No, it's like nothing. Like, all right, okay, well then. But yeah, a lot of times people who assist Kolchak end up taking a dirt nap. So we've got that. So, like I said, I could easily see, like, obviously one player, because there's your Kolchak character. If you wanted to continue to keep it in the 70s, which is what I would actually recommend, you probably wouldn't want to make it a modern era, because a lot of the charm of Kolchak is how he tries to track down information about these various different monsters of the week, rather than just, well, I go online and I just, Google it. So I could see him having a cameraman, or I should say a photographer, not a cameraman. Unless you want to do like a TV station thing, you could do that. I guess that would work. But I could see having a photographer, because he's always lugging around his own camera. So that could make for another character. But yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. Oh, so there's some talk about the Night Stalker. The Night Stalkers, we love our tabletop role-playing games, is with us. Said the Night Stalker is why people believe Seattle has an underground city. It doesn't. It has the original first level in Pioneer Square before they lifted the city up. DB says, yeah, that underground city was great. It looked like a cheesy restaurant. Yes. When he confronts Oscar Goldman. Yeah, it's like, what are they in a? They in some Italian restaurant? What's going on here? JD Soul says skills-based research, investigation, interrogation, traveler, career, character creation, maybe. DB says, yeah, definitely needs to be 1970s. Scott Pyle is popping on in to chat. Welcome. Says they're working 24 hours today, but dipping in between runs to say hello. They loved Kolchak. There you go. Keith Lewis says Oscar Goldman and Chief Quinn from Forbidden Planet. DB says 1970s TV show Deep Cut. You know, it's kind of funny. The the movies of the week that ABC would have, they spent money on those. A lot of them would actually be shot and like released overseas as films. So of course, a lot of times they would actually film scenes with nudity and, you know, adult language and stuff like that, that obviously wasn't shown here on network TV at the time, but they would spend some money. There were some, like even into the 80s when they started, I guess it wasn't the 80s, it was late 70s. Roots is what kicked off the big mini-series craze where they spent, we're talking like theatrical film money on shows. Keith Lewis says, too bad the movie of the week had to go the way of the dinosaurs. Some real gems came out of that era. DB says Richard Anderson was in a great movie called Scaramouche. Loved that one. W. Ford says, I completely forgot about Richard Anderson. Scott Powell says 1970s disgraced cop would be a good side character. Lost her job because they believed. Okay, so we've already discussed we have to have a small group. So it's a small party, can't be more than 3 player characters because you're going to start losing its charm. And the other thing too is we don't necessarily want to constantly be breaking up the party to go, okay, you're going to research this, do this. Might as well just start playing Call of Cthulhu then. So we've got that. We also want to make sure that we have like faults for the player characters as well as beneficial traits to the character. So even thinking like looking at Kolchak is tenacious, right? He's like a dog with a bone. And it's like, he's going to get to the truth. He's going to get to the story no matter what. And that's also a bad thing too, because it puts him in a lot of situations that are not only dangerous, but he also compromises other people in the process of trying to get to the truth because the truth is out there. Some discussion about V. I remember V, but that wasn't as big a money sort of miniseries as some of the late 70s, early 80s stuff. Like if you watch Roots looks like a film. Roots doesn't look like something that was made for TV. V looks like something that's made for TV with fairly decent special effects for the time. Some discussion of our next role-playing game is a $6 million man. We can build an RPG. We have the technology. Better, faster, stronger. Okay. Yes, DB says Kolchak pushed it too far to have a career. Here's another interesting little tidbit. In the novel, Kolchak is a drunk. He has an alcohol problem. In the TV show, he's always turning down drinks. he would always like, oh yeah, hey, have a drink. He's like, oh no, later on, later. So it's kind of funny how they kind of moved away from that. Just like in the Night Stalker, he has his young girlfriend, and it's like, I mean, I get it. Yeah, I guess Darren McGavin at that point in time is probably late 40s, maybe around 50. And his girlfriend in it is like in her mid 20s. And it's sort of like, this is it's a little creepy here. Can we get by this scene already? Because he's like making out with her and stuff. She was supposed to be a hooker. So the way it was originally filmed, it's, you know that she's a hooker in Vegas. And that's part of the reason why she hangs out with Kolchak. And then they didn't, it's like, okay, it's far creepier with her not being a hooker than they just left it in that she was. Okay, so we have to have, like I said, we have to have beneficial traits and then negative traits. And we could come up with a score of those. Also, we would want to come up with how do we build the mystery? So the premise of Kolchak episodes is you'll get voiceover from Kolchak, and it's usually like June 24th, 7:59 p.m. Barbara Billingsley left it'll be like, okay, all right, okay. And it's like, he's just doing a voiceover and whoever he's talking about is going to be dead. And then they show them get killed by the monster or whatever, what have you, right? So then nobody believes what's going on. Kolchak kind of gets wind of something and something seems weird. So he starts chasing after that. Nobody believes him. Police don't believe him. He's just always a pain in the ass to the police force. And he's just uncovers more things. Now, most of the time, whatever evidence he finds somehow gets lost. There are some episodes where it doesn't, amazingly enough. It's not one of those where it's like, oh, damn, every episode is like, oh, I had it, but it's gone. But it does happen quite a bit. And then he'll stumble into a confrontation with the monster. Mateo's with us in chat, says, sounds like Scooby-Doo. Yeah, but unlike Scooby-Doo, the monsters were real. I mean, in the show, not like real. So what somebody talking about Richard Ramirez? Jeez. Pete Stracklett says her uncle-in-law used to sell weed to Richard Ramirez. He used to stop by the house to pick it up. DB says, that's the real Night Stalker. We're talking about the fun Night Stalker. JD says, evidence lost. He drank it. DB says, real estate developers are the real monsters. So I got to say, usually each episode will end with some sort of accidental confrontation with the monster of the week. And somehow along the way, Kolchak has learned how to defeat the monster of the week. Now, that's not every episode. There's an episode with an invisible alien. Remember? Shrinking budget. We did have a few invisible creatures, and there's only 20 episodes, and there's at least 3 off the top of my head that are invisible. But I know, spoiler alert, the show is more than 50 years old. The alien gets away. Just like there's the the lizard episode that I think it was DB mentioned in chat. Little different situation there. So, yes. So Keith Lewis says one of their favorite parts of the Kolchak series is Tony Vincenzo's rants. I got another cool little tidbit for you. Simon Oakland was that actor's name who played Tony Vincenzo, his editor. So Kolchak, because the show was originally called The Night Stalker, and I think it was for the first 4 weeks. And then they brought it back as Kolchak, The Night Stalker. And then that's what it's been known as ever since. So the Night Stalker series replaced a like cop show or kind of like PI show, private investigator show. And Simon Oakland was one of the stars of that show. So a show he was on replaced a show he was on, which is like, whoa, that is weird. JD Soul says dead side characters, just casualties lost along the way. So, okay, so that's something else that we got to make sure that we've got in a Kolchak role-playing game are memorable and important NPCs, recurring NPCs. So we've got to have the Tony Vincenzo, the Miss Emily. Now I'm trying to remember the other guy's name. The kind of fussy reporter, which Kolchak doesn't really get along with all that well. But got to make sure you got those. Got to make sure and make them memorable characters and make them part of each of the adventures, because otherwise it's not going to feel like it'd be a Kolchak story. Keith Lewis says the episode with the witch, the actress who played her also played another witch on Dark Shadows. There you go. Keith Lewis, Ron Updike, aka Uptight. That's what Kolchak calls him, Ron Uptight. So if you are watching this live or after the fact, if you have not seen Kolchak the Night Stalker, you gotta get it. Get yourself, doesn't like Peacock do a free week? They got to. All these streaming services do something. Sign up for a free week, whatever. Watch the 20 episodes. Now, one thing I will recommend, do not binge watch them like knocking them out in like 3 days, because it kind of loses its specialness, even the bad episodes, because Darren McGavin always makes the show watchable. Even for the worst episodes, he still makes the show entertaining to watch. Now, the story itself might be ridiculous, but still, definitely something I would recommend. Do not watch them all back to back to back to back to back. Maybe watch in blocks of like 3 episodes. And then watch another 3. You only got 20, so that's it. DB says systems which would work. Basic role-playing, Delta Green, Daredevils, Weird Heroes of Public Access. That's funny how DB just mentioned Weird Heroes of Public Access. I'm sharing a news story about that tomorrow, because it's out in print from Exalted Funeral, and it looks kind of weird. Okay. LJ says, I got the run of the TV show saved through Prime. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, something else I would probably think for a Kolchak role-playing game, got to make it rules light. Got to make it rules light, and combat is not much of a thing. Because normally the creatures that Kolchak goes up against, the police empty revolvers into them. And nothing happens. So it's kind of like, it's always like, I think I want to say that it's made out of Spanish moss, the Spanish moss creature. It can only be destroyed by stabbing it with a stick from like a Spanish moss tree or whatever. Troy Dixon's with us in chat, said they bought the DVD when they first came out. Keith Lewis says, Weird Heroes of Public Access is pretty rules light. DB says, it's great. Very Kolchak vibes. Sweet. So the funny thing is, it's not that tough to come up with ideas for how to make a Kolchak role-playing game. We already know the tropes. We already know the beats we want to hit, right? Only one who's got the answers, or only one who's on the trail of the answers, is Kolchak. And everybody else, except for side characters, are probably going to end up dead later on in the adventure, believes him. And then even at the end, after the creature, entity, whatever has been defeated, he still can't prove it. So, of course, that's one of the beats where it's, the player characters are the outsiders. They don't fit in. So that's something else that we would look at. I would think what would probably work really nicely would be a dice pool system. And I would think something along the lines of 6-sided dice. We would have maybe 4 attributes. We don't have to go like too deep into it. We could have something like, like body, mind, spirit, and then something that would be social, right? So even though Kolchak irritates the shit out of like everybody, he is charismatic as well. So it's kind of like, okay. W4 just say, why am I thinking about a Quincy ME role-playing game? Hey, that'd be a mystery game, right? TV says, assignment, everyone go run a Kolchak game and report back with your findings. DB says, Savage Worlds, I think Savage Worlds could work. Outgunned, yeah, I would think Outgunned. I haven't had a chance to see Outgunned Adventure yet. I would think maybe, because remember, Outgunned is more kind of like Hollywood action blockbuster sort of vibe to it. Not so much investigative role-playing, but like Gumshoe, even like Bubble Gumshoe, which I think, even though that is for kind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Scooby-Doo-ish sort of adventures, I think that would probably work pretty well. But I would think what you could do for making it very rules light would be have a dice pool system and then have a target number. So your attribute plus skill, whatever modifiers you have, would be the number of dice, which is very similar, of course, to Outgunned. But in Outgunned, when you're rolling your dice, you're looking at matching up dice. So like 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, 5 of a kind. Whereas with this, we would look at a target number. So maybe having something like a 2 in a skill would be a big deal. And we could lift from like Traveler, right? And you could have a 0 in a skill, because not having a skill would normally give you a negative modifier. So DB says, yeah, I think Weird Heroes is a game with Kolchak in its DNA. Very possible. DB says, be careful, next stop is a Golden Girls role-playing game. No, no, that ain't happening. Keith Lewis says, Weird Heroes uses mind, mouth, here we go, the mouth, I like that, body and soul. Yeah, you know what, just with that, you would kind of think, yeah, there's a little bit of Kolchak in its DNA. But I think it would be kind of fun. We would want to make, like, once again, we would want to make sure that we gear it for small groups of people. I would have to say it's going to be very narrative. It's not going to be a lot of crunch. Like I said, I mean, if you've seen Kolchak, he just gets thrown all over the place by the monsters and stuff. It's not like he puts up any kind of fight. Well, I mean, for his life, but it's not like, oh yeah, he's duking it out or shooting it out or anything like that. So very cool. Very cool. The reason why I use this topic tonight is because the past couple of weeks, we've kind of, Kolchak keeps coming up in discussion. So I thought, hey, you know what? Let's talk about what would it take to have a Kolchak role-playing game? I'll tell you what, we still have a few minutes. If you have a chance real quick in chat, and of course, if you're watching this after the fact on Memorex possibly, let me know in the comments section, what would be something that you would want in a role-playing game that was based on Kolchak the Night Stalker? What do you think would be the most important thing about it? Kathy Evans says a solo play option could be interesting. Yeah, I think that would probably be a pretty big deal. DB says, I've been talking about Kolchak for 50 years. Keith Lewis says, 1 week he's got a shotgun, another a vial of holy water. Another week he's got a stick made from a Spanish moss tree or whatever. DB says their wife thinks they're whack. I don't remember Kolchak when it first aired. I would have been 7. So when it first came out, I would have been 6, but my birthday's in October. So a few weeks into its run, halfway to its cancellation, I would have turned 7. So I don't really remember. You know, I probably saw an episode or two. But where most people ended up seeing Kolchak the Night Stalker was when CBS picked it up years later. I think it was like 79. And they started to run it. I think it was on Friday nights. They had like their CBS late movie. This is back in the day when your networks, once the local news was over, it was kind of like, okay, we've got the Tonight Show. And then after that, it's like, maybe you had Tom Snyder on Today or tomorrow. I think it was Tomorrow is what it was called. So CBS started running it as their late night show because they didn't have a late night talk show. So they did a late night movie. And then on Fridays, I think they may have ran 2 episodes together. And they did that. I want to say they started doing that in the summer. And it was like super popular. It was popular to the point where there was actually some chatter that maybe they would bring Kolchak the Night Stalker back. And I think Darren McGavin was like, oh no, no. And if I remember right, I think CBS pulled it because they pulled it from the summer CBS Friday night movie, whatever, because they wanted to bust it out during their new season as opposed to when the reruns were going on. And they did that a few times. I think they did that a few times through the 80s. And I think that's how a lot of people were introduced to Kolchak the Night Stalker. At least people who are older, right? Other people, for an example, Sci-Fi Channel. That was another big one that a lot of people caught Kolchak the Night Stalker. Yes, the episode with Tom Skerritt making a deal with the devil. Yes, and he turns into a dog, a devil dog. But then at the end, Tom Skerritt's destroyed, but the dog is still alive. And it's like, it's a regular old dog. It's like, yeah, okay. DB says they're excited for the Planet of the Apes role-playing game coming out imminently. It was funny at Game Hill Con. I talked to a couple of folks from Magnetic Play, and remember I shared the first look at the quick start rules that were pretty in-depth. And I was like, yeah. So it looked pretty good. And I kept hearing about the adventure that they ran at Game Hill Con. Sounded really cool. But I guess it was something that they weren't going to be able to publish because of the licensing. So I was like, oh, okay. All right. Yes. So the X-Files, some of the inspiration, what did Chris Carter say? Something like 30% of the inspiration for the X-Files came from Kolchak. That 10% of it came from like the Twilight Zone, 30% from Kolchak, and then the rest was just his own creation and stuff like that. DB says their Delta Green character is Kolchak. Chris Lundgren's been hanging with us in chat. Good to see you, Chris. All righty. I'm just checking to see if anybody else has mentioned anything in chat about what they think is a must-have in a Kolchak the Night Stalker role-playing game. Anyway, let's see. Any other little Kolchak tidbits I can share? Well, there is the two novels. I shouldn't say is. Well, okay, I was going to say there is a collection of both novels, and it's called The Kolchak Papers. And it is Jeff Rice's original novel, The Night Stalker, which is far more adult. I mean, it's not like, oh my gosh, send the kids out of the room kind of thing, but I mean, it is a vampire in Vegas. And then there's also The Night Strangler, which I'm not positive. I haven't checked it out yet. I've listened to The Night Stalker, which is actually read by William Catt from the Greatest American Hero, which I didn't really, I never watched the show, but I know who he is. But it's actually pretty good. I don't know if the novelization of The Night Strangler is Jeff Rice doing a novelization of Richard Matheson's script, because I don't think it's a Richard Matheson novel. I don't know. Keith Lewis says, besides the monster, his other adversary must be the Chicago Police Department, and always have some new actor playing the captain. That although Keenan Wynn showed up twice as the same character, that was a first. So, okay, here's another nice little interesting tidbit about Kolchak the Night Stalker. So it takes place in Chicago. They did some exterior shots of Chicago for it. Most of the filming was in LA. But they'll make references to stuff in Chicago in each episode. Well, there are some episodes that take place outside of Chicago, but interestingly enough, usually back at that point in time, 70s, early 80s TV shows, if it was like, well, this is New York, yeah, this takes place in New York, they would say stuff, oh, well, I'm going over to, 75th and Maine. And they'd be like, 75th and Maine? What the fuck is that? That doesn't exist in New York. I mean, I'm just saying there would be stuff like that where if you were a New Yorker, you'd be like, what the hell's going on here? That didn't happen a whole lot on Kolchak the Night Stalker. They would reference stuff that was legitimately Chicago. And some of it was just kind of almost like throwaway stuff. And you were like, really? Now, there were times like streets were like, no, that's not right. But I'll give you a great example. In the episode with the Spanish moss monster, who was played by Richard Keel, who actually played the monster or entity, whatever, in back-to-back episodes of Kolchak, the only 2 episodes he's in. So they mention, he's doing the voiceover and he mentions the Appalachia Ghetto. And it was like, Appalachia Ghetto? The hell is that? It really existed. There was an area of uptown in Chicago, that's north side of the city, where a lot of people who lived in Appalachia came up. They migrated to find work. And many of them lived in this one area of uptown, and a derogatory term for it was the Appalachia Ghetto. I was like, really? I was like, holy cow. But those were the kind of things that would pop up. So that was something I liked about the show because as someone who was born and raised in Chicago and spent 20 some years living in the city, it would be like, if I'm watching something, it's supposed to be Chicago and it's like, oh yeah, well, we're going to go over to like, we're going to go visit the ocean front or something. You'd be like, what? So Kevin R. Smith is with us. Said they actually called them Appalachians as opposed to clodhoppers or briars. Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. All right. So Kevin R. Smith says, we decided what a Kolchak RPG would look like. Well, we've talked about some of the like major beats that it would have to have. So I think that's it. DB's talking about an elf role-playing game or Pee-wee's play. See, I can't see a Pee-wee's Playhouse role-playing game. I just don't see it. Just don't see it. But yeah, definitely Keith Wood said besides the monster, his other adversary must be Chicago Police Department. And another adversary needs to be his editor, who stands in his way. Dun, dun, dun. But all right. So fun little break from our usual nonsense here on the Dispatch. I thought we'd just hang out, have a little fun, kind of try to bounce around some ideas. All right. All right. DB says I'd be a great Cherry. I gotta be honest, I didn't watch Pee-wee's Playhouse. I was way too old. It just was not even really on my radar. Although I did watch the documentary about Pee-wee. Sadly, he passed before they finished it up, but I enjoyed that. I thought that was really interesting. But I just didn't watch. And I get it. A lot of adults watched it. Completely understand. I'm not knocking anybody who did. Just saying I never did. Never did. All right. So, as I mentioned, if the package arrives in time tomorrow will be our Paizo preview for July. I believe there are 6 items in transit that we will take a peek at. If not, I do have a backup plan, but I'm pretty sure that package will be showing up. Should also mention tomorrow I'm going in for that other echogram where they're going to shoot some crap into me. I hate when they got to inject stuff in me. Ugh. I remember when I was awaiting the triple bypass, and the only reason why I had to stay a week in the hospital was because they had me on blood thinners, and there was no way they could, take me down to surgery on blood thinners. So they had to get it out of my system. So I had this thing. I had an IV basically. And then they would check my blood levels. And every once in a while they would actually, if you've been in the hospital and you had to get an injection, they stick a thing in your arm and then just put the needle in and inject you. And I forget what the hell it was. But this nurse came in, she said, I got to give you an extra dose of whatever. And she stuck it in there and just went, what? And it was like, wah! It was like, hey, was that a Ferrari running up my arm? What the fuck? So ever since then, I'm not a big fan of IVs and stuff like that. Anyway, so that is on the agenda for tomorrow. I'm sure I won't find out anything until next week, but still. Anywho. So if I'm not like my usual goofball self tomorrow, it's probably because I don't feel so hot after they've injected me with shit. W4 says a new art role-playing game where at the end of the campaign, you discover it's all a dream. I did that with a Call of Cthulhu adventure once. Anyway, Kevin King says his wife is descended from the Boones. Her family was part of that migration to Chicago. Wow. Pretty wild. Pretty cool. Okay, gang. That's it for this time out. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watch live, took part in chats, tip of the cap to you, because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company while I'm sharing the news or when I'm doing unboxing, flipping through a book, what have you. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you for taking time out to watch any of the over 2,200 videos here on the channel. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Death Steps Light Fingers from Cubicle 7 Games. All right, everybody, thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and as always, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.